Hey guys, welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and appreciate you guys coming by the channel. Got a good on the water video for y'all today. We are going to be talking about where to look for bass in the month of April and when they start spawning. I have got a perfect scenario here as far as exactly the progression that bass, the type of areas that bass use when they get ready to spawn, sort of like a late pre-spawn, spawn, early post-spawn period. So what I'm going to do in today's video is I'm going to start where these bass first get into the mode to want to move up to spawn. We're going to start out there. I'm going to show you the first place they go to right before they get ready to spawn. And then I'm going to take you guys and I'm going to show you exactly the type of areas to look for when they're spawning. And then I'm going to show you guys where they go immediately after spawning. So this is going to give you guys a good visual on the lake on what to look for, techniques that's going to work. It's just going to be a really good information-packed video. It's definitely going to help you guys catch some fish over the next month or so. Also, guys, before we get started, if you like the content here, and if you like this tip and you get something out of the video today, and you want to give something back to Intuitive Angling, man, one of the best ways you can do it is just go into my description of my video here, guys. Use all the links. If you guys are using my tackle warehouse link to purchase your tackle, like a lot of you guys do, you're doing a big help. Thank you very much. Also, guys, we do have the Easter sale going on my Signature Series glasses from SolarBat now, my RB2s and 3s. You can get them at 30% off this month. Links in the description of that. And finally, guys, anybody interested in booking a private on-the-water lesson with me, we go out on the lake with me, Table Rock or Stockton's, where I do most of my lessons, just shoot me a private message on my Facebook page, Intuitive Angling with Randy Blaukat, and I'll get you all the details with that. And thank you for putting up with the plugs. I really appreciate that. Okay, guys, the situation today, at the time of filming this video, it's almost the 1st of April. I think we're at March 26th right now. I'm on the lake right now. I'm actually on Table Rock Lake, which is it's a really good example of what to look for in a lot of man-made lakes across the country. Water temperature is upper 50s, so we are right on the verge of these fish getting ready to start spawning. And I have got a prime spot that I want to show you guys here about how I approach it. So what I'm going to do here, guys, is I'm going to turn the camera around. We're going to start where you first want to look when that water temperature gets in the upper 50s, and I'm going to show you where to look for it when it gets in the 60s and 70s. So here we go. Okay, guys, hope the audio on this isn't too bad because the wind's blowing like a mother out here today. But anyway, I'm in a cove here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how the bass position in this cove in the springtime of the year based upon water temperature. We're going to start out when the water temperature is in the mid to upper 50s. Then we're going to move back in there when the water temperature gets close to 60. And then we're going to move back in the cove even further when that water temperature starts to get about 65. Now, this is going to be a transition that's based upon your weather patterns, because based upon the specific weather patterns you guys have in your area at the time, sometimes this transition takes place very rapidly, like in a matter of a week. Sometimes it's 2 or 3 weeks. But I'm going to show you through the progression here and about how I like to fish each particular spot of this cove. Now, every man-made lake in the country has this to some extent. We're on Table Rock Lake again today. This is typical of a man-made impoundment, so unless you're fishing like a TVA lake or a Florida lake or South Texas lake, you're going to be able to apply this to your fishing. So I'm going to turn the camera around here and we're going to go through this whole cove and sort of explain to you how to approach it here. So here we go. Guys, here's the cove we're in right now. If you can see right here, there's the main lake out there, and there's the one point leading into this cove that goes all the way back there. You can, right behind that dock, that's the back end. And here's the other point leading into it. So these are the secondary points leading into back of this cove right here. Now, this is going to be a prime spawning cove that we'll talk about. It's got a combination of the right bank angle, the right rock composition, hardness of bottom. So here's what you need to look for, is when that water temperature is in the mid to upper 50s, like it is right now. See right here, we got 57-degree water temperature. This is where a lot of the fish are going to be. They're going to be hanging in around these secondary points leading into the cove here. So some of my top techniques, guys, you want to try is you got to try a shaky head. Fish a shaky head depending upon your water clarity. If the water clarity is like under 3 foot visibility, concentrate in 5 to 8 foot of water. If it's cleaner, move out deeper. Some of these fish in clear water, like here at Table Rock, they could be 20 foot deep here, even though we're getting close to spring. So a shaky head, a Ned rig is going to be really good. Some type of a bottom bait, dragging a football head jig, or like one of my favorites is like a swing head jig, like a biffle head. But fish in and around these leading secondary points. Same on the other side, fish both sides of them. And what I would do is I'd fish the point leading up maybe 100 yards or so on the inside of the point. Now, these are going to be areas that the bass are going to be staging in. They're waiting till it warms up. They're going to be hanging out on these points. They're going to be moving in and out of the main lake. And this is where you can catch them, usually when the water temperature is below 60. So let's move up to the next stage now. Okay, now here's the next stage. And I usually like to fish this part when the water temperature is right at 60, maybe low 60s. We are in the middle part of the cove here. Again, you can see the back of the cove there. Scroll up here, you can see the main lake point coming out there. So we are in the mid part of the cove here, halfway back into it. Now what you want to look is you got to concentrate on what is considered the first part of the cove, which is out there towards the main lake, the mid part of the cove, which is, you know, halfway through the cove, and then you got the back 2/3 there. Now here's the progression. Once that water temperature starts to hit about 60 degrees, and when I'm talking about 60, I'm talking about 60 right off the bat in the morning. I'm not talking about warming up in the afternoon to 60. When you launch your boat, if it's 60 degrees, this is where you want to be, right around 60. Go about halfway back into the cove, because those fish that were out there on that main point out there, the secondary point, they're gradually going to be starting to swim back into this cove here, and they don't do it real rapidly. They're coming and going a lot of times. You got males moving in and out, looking for, you know, suitable nesting habitats. You got females starting to move up in here. A lot of the females are going to be hanging out deeper in the cove here. A lot of the males are going to be up shallow looking for bedding areas. And this usually takes place, like I said, once that water temperature gets around 60 degrees. And I'm not saying that every one of them do it at the same time. This is like, I'm going to say that half of the bass, half of the population are going to be doing this. The other half are going to be either a little behind or a little ahead. So this is where I concentrate in. So when I'm fishing these areas like here that are halfway back into the cove, a lot of it depends on the weather conditions. One of my favorite ways to catch them, guys, if you have a day that is like early in the morning, it's a little bit shady, say it's overcast, or you got a cloudy day, a floating worm or a fluke or like a small swim bait can be really good, especially in those low light conditions in the mid part of the cove, because these fish they're not spawning yet. They're close to it, and they will still bite some type of a moving lure a little bit until they start getting locked onto the beds. But you got to have the right conditions, and usually that's a little bit of wind, a little bit of low light conditions, a little bit of clouds. If you have a day like we have right here, you know, it's bright, sunshiny, I'm going to stay again with the shaky head and the Ned rig. They're going to be really good, you know, choices in this type of a thing. Again, depending upon my water clarity, I could be fishing 5 to 20 foot deep on these mid halfway back in the cove banks. Another bait that works really good is what is called a split shot rig. We do this a lot here in the Ozarks. Take like a little Zoom French fry, put like an 1/8 ounce sinker, peg it about 18 inches above it, fish it back in these type of areas about halfway in. Now, these fish are going to stay here until that water temperature starts to get into the low 60s, or you get close to that first full moon in April. And then the next phase of it is they're going to move back to the back 2/3. So let's take a look at that. Okay, guys, now here is the really meat and potatoes of the video. This is the back 2/3 of the cove. You can see there's the very back right there. There's the whole mouth of the cove. Now, once that water temperature starts to get above 60, like into the mid 60s, a lot of the bass are going to be moving to the back of this cove here to actually spawn. You know, they're going to be building their nest back in here on the hard bottoms. You know, depending upon sorry about the wind again, depending upon how clear the water is, it could be 2 foot deep, it could be down to 10 foot deep, just depending on how clear it is. But this is a prime area for the actual spawning act. Now, this is the type of a spot, guys, I don't want to fish in here. This is the last place that I want to fish in here, because number one, it gets pounded. It's like, if you know, in the springtime of the year, everybody heads to the back of you see them, they come in and out, in and out, in and out. It's like, if you're here like at Table Rock, guys, on the weekend, I promise you, there'll be 50 boats coming in and out of the back of this cove during the course of the day. You'll have somebody coming in and out when another guy's coming in. So from that standpoint, I do not like fishing back here. But if you can be one of the first people back here, this can be a really, really good area. And again, one of the best lures when the water temperature is in the mid 60s and the fish are back in here spawning, a floating worm is one of the best baits you can catch them in, because I don't like to target for visible fish, bedding fish. I don't like to mess with them. I want them to do their thing and be undisturbed. So a lot of times I'll be targeting the fish that are coming and going or cruising, and it's hard to beat a floating worm with that. Really, really good bait with it. A wacky rig also, I'll get in the back third of the coves here and I'll just slowly work down the whole banks with a wacky rig. Really, really good way to catch them in the back ends. Okay guys, there is a prime example of sort of where the fish are positioned at in relationship to the cove in here. Now, one of the things to remember about this, it's like there's no absolutes, because every spring is different. Because like right now, it's super warm. It's supposed to be 90 degrees here today in Missouri. It's supposed to get cold this weekend. So when you have these weather patterns that come through during the springtime of the year, it'll pull fish up real quick and it'll back them off real quick. So there's a lot of inconsistencies to what I just told you based upon the weather patterns. But if you have stable weather, this is usually the progression that they're going to make. And again, it's like anytime you talk about bass fishing techniques, there's not one shoe that fits all. It's like there's not any absolute, because while I would guess, like I said, my own opinion, about 50% of the bass population in the lake, they do exactly what I just told you. And then there's going to be 50% of the bass that they may be spawning right now. The water temperature is 57 degrees right now, and there may be some early spawners, especially like the smallmouth. And also there's some late spawners. I've seen bass spawn on Table Rock Lake in the first week of June. So you're not going to have all the bass do everything at the same thing. So that's why at any given time, let's say if you're fishing in the middle of April, which is the prime spawning month and time of April in most parts across the country, you may have bass out there in the pre-spawn period on those points. You may have some bass moving in the halfway area. You may have some bass in the back of the cove at the same time. And you also, if the water's real clear, you may still have some bass suspended out there. But the main thing that you want to do in bass fishing is you got to put yourself around where the majority of the fish are. That's the whole key. And then you can expand on that once you are comfortable that you're around a good area. But a lot of it is just experimentation, because the weather patterns that we have as far as the wind direction, the sunlight intensity, like it's a bright sunny day. If you had a cloudy day, the bass would behave differently. But the main thing is this is where the bass go. It's like there's two main motivations a bass has. That is to reproduce and eat. And they are focused super heavy on the reproduction this time of year, and this is the type of areas they're in. They need to be in protected areas. They need to be in a hard bottom area that's suitable for hatching their eggs out. And, they need to be secure. They don't want to get a lot of, pressure coming in. I have seen lots of fish bedding like in the back of a creek like that, and fishing pressure will move those fish off the beds. They won't even stay. It's like, I've seen some situations on the weekend, guys, where there's boats in and out, and those bass they'll just give up on it. They do not want to tolerate it, and a lot of times they won't even spawn, and they'll just absorb their eggs and not even spawn. So one of the things I want to reiterate when you see bedding bass, guys, is just let them do their thing. Don't jack with them. I mean, if it's a tournament, I understand. If you roll up on one and you're fishing a tournament and you see a 4-pounder on a bed, yeah, you're probably going to try to catch it. But so I've got mixed feelings about that. I don't like to do it, but I've done it before. But if I'm fishing for fun, guys, I just like to watch them. There's nothing more fun than just watching a bass spawn and watching how they move and how they behave and how they swim in clear water. It's a really fun way to do it. So that's the cove, guys. Now let's talk a little about, we'll finish it up with the best lure selections based upon the conditions. So here we go with that. Okay, guys, let's talk about lure selection, because the lure that you throw during this time of year, late pre-spawn, spawn, early post-spawn, it has a lot to do with the mood and the personality of the bass. And that depends upon not only the stage that the bass are in, but the weather conditions. Now, one of the things that you're going to find in general is like once that water temperature starts to getting around 60 degrees, the bass don't like to chase a lure as much as they did during the pre-spawn. Not to say that you can't catch them on it, because you can under the right conditions we'll talk about. But overall, one of the big pieces of advice I'm going to give y'all is when you start thinking about 60-degree water temperature, you need to start thinking about fishing soft plastics on the bottom. That's why your shaky heads, Ned rigs, drop shots, Texas rigs, that type of thing, wacky rigs, flick shakes, you know, any type of a bottom finesse soft plastic bait is going to be a really, really good selection. And also, guys, I'll in my tackle warehouse link in the description of this video, I'll put like a list of my favorite lures for this time of year if you guys would like to get some of those that I suggest there. But you can't go wrong with that. In fact, you know, if I could give you guys, you know, just to make it easy, try to really get something going with a wacky rig and a shaky head. Those are going to be your two most consistent producers anytime that water temperature is between like 58 and 70 degrees. By far, there's other baits you can catch them in, but day in and day out, you know, sunny, cloudy, windy, not wind, those are going to be the two baits that work the best with it. Another bait that works really good that you need to definitely try is that swing head jig, you know, like the Biffle hard head. I usually put that Zoom Z-Craw Jr. on it, and that's a really good bait to throw when those fish are not quite ready to spawn. They're really, really close, but I catch a lot of fish on that thing, especially when that water temperatures in the upper 50s can be really, really good. Now, if you have days, once that water gets about 60, if you have days where you got clouds and wind, the bass have a personality shift a little bit, and that they will start chasing and they'll bite moving baits during those conditions. And again, a floating worm and a fluke and a little swim bait's hard to beat. I really like that Megabass Magdraft on a windy, cloudy day. If it's just cloudy with not much wind, a fluke or a floating worm is deadly. Now, a fluke and a floating worm works really good when that water temperature is a little bit cooler. It's like as that water temperature starts to reach about 70 degrees, you notice that the fluke and the floating worm don't quite work as well. Now, it'll get the attention of the fish, but they don't bite it a lot of times. They'll look at it. Same with the swim bait. But if you start getting like 58, 59, 60 degree water and you get a day where there's not much wind, guys, try a floating worm or a fluke or like that Magdraft. It can be really, really good under those conditions with it. So main thing, guys, is this is the time of year you want to fish. I mean, this is absolutely the best time of year to fish. The reason is all those bass that spend much of the year like roaming around out in open water chasing shad, a lot of those fish are up shallow now. They're up in 10 foot of water. In fact, I'm going to guess that probably 75 to 80% of the bass population in a lake move into water less than 10 foot deep when that water temperature is between 60 to 70 degrees. And again, it depends on your water clarity and all that type of stuff, but this is the time to get out and do some fishing. And it's a beautiful time of year, man. The weather's usually really nice. You know, birds are chirping, very therapeutic to get out there. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you catch some fish from the information here, and we'll check in later.